If you're someone who constantly moans and complains about your studying, who thinks of all the work as a huge burden, a pain, a drag that you just have to get through to do well in your exams, well then honestly you don't understand how you can tap into the true enjoyment that you can be feeling from your work. Where every day you can be inspired, like stupidly optimistic and excited about all the stuff that you have to do. Because honestly now, after doing what I've done, that's how I feel. My name is Zain Asif. I'm a third-year medical student, and this week I've read 4 books, read numerous studies, watched so many TED Talks, all of it for this full guide on recreating innate enjoyment, happiness, fulfillment when we're studying, working, day in, day out. Honestly though, I've been thinking about this video for a lot of months now, and I really wanted to explore why, for me, I'm not just someone that's motivated to keep working. I'm someone that it comes like very naturally to. Even on the days when I'm super tired physically, I still want to create this script. I want to film this video. I want to work on the topics that I've done in placement. I want to learn more, read more. And yes, the things I do are aligned with my goals, but I think it's more than that. It's because I know in my heart that I would genuinely enjoy the work tasks, the things that I have to get done today, more than watching a TV show or like scrolling or doing any random activity. Like the daily tasks I have to do are way more fun for me, and I think that's a crazy idea that most people cannot understand. And so I've dissected every part of my studying process. I looked at everything I do these days to make it so enjoyable, and I wanted to give you all of the practical actions that I've taken over the years as well to make the studying process this enjoyable. And this full guide will be split up into 3 parts. 1, creating enjoyment before the session, during the session, and after the session. But listen, for this to work, you need to reboot what's up here. So open up the way you think. Get out of this CBA, I don't want to work attitude. Actually do the actionable steps that I'm giving you in this guide. That is the only way. I know you feel like your studies are just a series of chores to get done, but that's a terrible way to think. Yes, to a degree, your brain will be less stimulated if you didn't go on TikTok, but we need to evolve above that logic. For me, after racking my brain for ages, what I realized is that what helps immediately when you're starting out is number 1, quickly building interest in the topic and understanding it very fast. And number 2, finding autonomy in the process. Number 1, when I sit down to study a topic, the thing that helps me the most as soon as I start and eases me into the process is starting by watching 5 to 10 minutes of a video from Osmosis or Zero to Finals on YouTube. They have animations on the topic, there's sound effects, there's actual good process and concept explanations, and it's easy to understand. And that is your very first action point. It is as simple as that. You need to quickly increase your interest in the thing that you're learning without even thinking about what the thing is. Just start by trying to watch a fun, interesting video on the topic and try to understand it. That's what helps me. Your brain will be engaged, and because these videos are so good, you will actually understand the things that they're telling you. You'll understand the basics, and what this does, even for me, once the topic makes even a little bit of sense, it stops feeling like this whole unknown thing that I have no idea about. It's not too boring, it's not too hard, and what happens is I actually want to continue to understand it. I'm not in love with the topic yet, but this is action number 2. Approach the topic like a puzzle, taking it layer by layer with you slowly putting the pieces together. Starting with the outside borders, starting with the basics there, and then building inwards or however puzzles are made. Why? Because when we understand something, we are way more interested in it. Again, it's really simple. It's why you love your favorite subject so much, because you understand it. Now that you've started to get into the subject, now you keep understanding it. And what this means is that if you get stuck, go back to where you weren't stuck and keep asking, how does this all make sense? How does this all fit in my initial mental structure of the topic? Don't waste your time trying to force yourself to understand something when you genuinely can't. We learn best in layers anyways. Easiest information first, then the general concepts, and then the hardest complex details. Go check out my live studying series to actually see me study this way, or go watch my full guide on effective studying to learn more about how to do it as well. My point is that you need to develop that initial interest very quickly, and then you need to quickly try and understand the basics as quick as possible so that you can get your brain engaged. Overall, these 2 action points that I've just mentioned are the basic, simple things that I do to initiate my interest in a topic before starting. It's very easy, and you are 100% smart enough to actually do it. Learning whatever topic you're doing doesn't have to be a chore, and if what I said didn't make perfect sense for you, didn't work, then your task is to think of 3 more things in the process of working that have engaged you in the past. Think about your favorite subject, what works for them, why are they so desirable, and why do you prefer them over the others, and then replicate that. Step 2, make your own system. The problem is that I know that building interest in this topic, like in this initial way, is very surface level stuff. So now I'll tell you the things that actually worked in a more long-term sense. During my final year of school, I was doing the IB, and that meant I was juggling like 6 subjects. I was applying for med school as well, doing UCAT, BMAT. There was a lot of stuff going on, and I genuinely hated most of the work I had to do. I was was so jaded with it because despite having like really big goals, actually, I was so pressurized with the fact that I have to get great grades. And naturally, studying for any subject, I think except bio, was like such an uphill battle. As soon as I stepped into uni, I completely changed my entire process, and then I scored in the top 1 percentile of the entire year. And it's probably the most fun I ever had while I was studying. How? I realized there's gonna be pressure at every stage, regardless of where you are. So instead of succumbing to it, instead of feeling jaded and making studying this huge chore, and figured out how to beat the exam instead. That is the action point of this step. I went into that year thinking that I'm gonna come up with the best system to beat this exam. I spent hours analyzing all of the papers I had for each of those modules. I literally did it so much and so well that I predicted half the papers. I studied extremely hard and extremely selectively. And the reason getting this involved and then coming up with your own process and doing all of this effortful stuff is because I gave myself autonomy. Autonomy is the word I want you to remember. I said screw what school teaches us. Screw this hours and hours of note-taking and reading and classes and all of this BS. And let me take the exam on head on, make it my mission, and then work backwards. And slowly, very gradually, I improved the way that I used to study. And I came up with my own method. Came up with my own exam strategy. I'm gonna link up that full exam strategy here. It's a full guide with a lot of actionable steps. You can follow it to the T and it will get you to the same result that it got for me. But my point is, only once I started to do that and take responsibility for my process, for my study method, for my strategy, did I weirdly start to enjoy what I was doing. I started to actually enjoy the process and feel passionate about the work. Autonomy, according to most of the books that I read and most of the studies that I saw, was one of the biggest human nature motivators. It's not rocket science and makes sense to feel passionate and excited by the work you're doing if you've made it your own without conforming to the school or the system or whatever people are telling you to do. It's your process. It's like a mission to learn all of this in the fastest, most efficient way possible to beat the exam, to get to that top 1% level. And this applies to every work task that you can think of. With YouTube, creating content, doing any sort of business, even like the autonomy is built in. You can do what you want. I can research and do a fully fledged scientific video and to teach the viewer how I do a specific thing. I can make a chit chat video. I can make an advice video where I collate the advice from multiple books and I present that to you. And I can film however I want. I can say whatever I want to explain the process to you. That is the essence of having autonomy over the process. And that brings us to the next part of the guide, what you do when you want to feel enjoyment during the study session. But before we do that, it's very important to recognize that your ability to actually enjoy the work that you're doing is hugely correlated with your emotional and mental well-being and how you're feeling on the day in, day out. It's really hard to concentrate on the process or even the minimum tasks you have if you're dealing with something deeper or if the exam pressure has got to you. Usually for me, I've just learned to push through, but the paid partner of today's video, BetterHelp, reached out to me at the perfect time. Because even this year, managing the exams, the dissertation, this channel, all of it was quite overwhelming. And having a professional to speak to who is trained to listen and give me helpful, unbiased advice was very useful. Before starting, I had no idea what it would be like, but all you have to do is go to their site using my link, betterhelp.com/ZainAsif. That is betterhelp.com/ZainAsif. You answer a few questions and BetterHelp connects you with a professional who has years of experience. And then you can talk to your therapist in any way that's comfortable, whether it's phone, messaging, video calls, very straightforward process. So if any of that sounds like something you'd be interested in, please head over to betterhelp.com/ZainAsif. And if you use that link, you also get 10% off your first month of therapy. So thank you so much to BetterHelp for partnering on this video. Part 2, creating enjoyment during the session. Now let's put up a summary slide for the previous part just to recap exactly what actions you need to take and what the steps were. But moving on, you will not be able to enjoy this studying unless, number 1, you take control and make your own process. You build your own system for studying and tackling the exam. But also number 2, you need to keep on now working on improving this process and master the skill of studying, the skill of learning. Let me expand on that. We have an innate desire to get better at stuff, to learn and to grow. Maybe it's been stomped out when it comes to you studying. But for example, think about the amount of people that love playing football every weekend, that love playing instruments, batting in the nets, drawing away in their rooms. Why are they doing it? Are they making money off it? No. Are they professionals? No. They're doing it because it's fun to get better at playing the piano, to learn how to tackle better, to dribble more. It's interesting, it's fun to play, it's fun to improve your skills skills, and it's an innate part of being human. And trust me, we would be the same with the learning and the knowledge. But the school system has clearly shifted all of that and made your narrow, closed off goal grades. That makes the entire process of learning and studying like super dull and miserable. So yes, as I mentioned, the first proper thing you need to do to get out of this like rat race for the grades is to give yourself autonomy, to take responsibility of your process and the way you're doing things. More specifically, the previous action point, what it meant was to come up with your exam strategy and come up with an executable way to plan it, like actually do it, plan how you're gonna do it. Now carrying on from that, the next action point for you to do is to now improve on every single part of your studying process. Now carrying on from that, what you need to do is improve whatever you're working on, improve the process and the way you're doing it, work towards mastery. For example, in this case, that means improving your skill of studying and learning efficiently. It means trying out new techniques, actually taking the leap of faith and finally practice the methods and the study methods that I've been going on about and spoon feeding you guys in all of my videos for years now. Because that's what helped me. At the time, I knew I wanted to get faster at studying. I knew I wanted to get better so I can get more done and not be at risk of not getting the top 1 percentile grade. But actually seeing myself get so good so quickly in those first few months of uni, when I took the risk and I started to just create the questions and recall them and stop making notes and stop doing the whole rereading thing, seeing that it worked, seeing that it had results and that I actually remembered information more and for longer and understood things way faster, seeing the results of it actually pushed me to want to improve this process even more. Improving the skill of the studying was actually probably more enjoyable than learning the actual content itself. Enjoying the actual content, you have to understand this, will come way later because you've been so jaded with the schoolwork that learning new things is not stimulating to you anymore. And it's also quite difficult to do when there's all of this pressure. But taking responsibility of how you're learning and then gradually improving it, improving the way your brain works, those are the steps that you can take right now. Fully just throw yourself into it. It'll remove the pressure a bit and you'll actually start to enjoy it. I'm now at a stage where the studying comes naturally. It's so fun because I have not to this day stopped actually improving how I'm learning. Every year I improve the way I learn, I improve the methods and I teach it back to you. Even this year, the whole mind mapping thing, I learned about it in September, but I've practiced them so much now that I could not imagine going back to just making the questions and then recalling, because that's a lot less efficient than what I'm doing now. Anyways, to practically improve the skill of studying, because at the end of the day we do need a guide when it comes to building on these skills, I've linked up a 3-month plan week by week where I give you the study skills and the practices that you should incorporate into your actual study sessions to then gradually improve. And I've given it in the ideal order of how I think you should do it. It's probably most of it is the order of how I did it, so I highly recommend checking it out and then working on this. Step 2, enter flow as much as possible. When I'm actually in the session, the times where I genuinely love the work and enjoy it so much is when I'm in flow. When I'm writing a script for a video, when I'm researching, ideas are just flowing, I'm typing away, it's all so perfect. Or when I'm studying, gradually getting into the harder concepts, slowly building up the layers, understanding so fluidly. Everything is making sense, everything is fitting into my initial mental model of the topic. This flow state isn't super difficult to achieve, and it's what makes the work so enjoyable. It's the reason working 10 hours, 12 hours a day is so easy for me at this point. And I know the thing is most of you cannot relate at all because you struggle to actually focus on the work for more than 5 minutes, much less hours. But to get to this flow state, you need to understand that the way we focus isn't just, yeah, I'm focused or I'm not focused. It's a 4-step cycle that goes on repeat all day long. That is, if you can get past the first phase, the loading phase. This is the initial struggle where you sit down to study, but your mind knows that it's difficult or it's boring and it doesn't want to do it. So it makes you pull your phone out, makes you go up and get a snack and do anything. It literally squirms and like shouts at you to just stop what you're doing and jump to something else. So the action point here is to face that initial resistance head on. To set a task for yourself, whether it's 60 questions or this much of the topic, and just sit and do it for 30 minutes. There is no other solution. If you can muster up the willpower to just push through, I'm telling you, it'll get a lot easier after you've pushed past that first little bit where you have that initial resistance. The second phase is when you're starting to concentrate. It's the release phase where all the hormones that will help you motivate yourself and focus better, they're all released. And then the third phase is the actual flow state phase. And that is the goal of the cycle, right? To get into that flow state. It lasts for me at these days around 2 to 3 hours, but of course it varies. The books all describe it as this like magical thing that's happening, but you don't even realize what's happening. You're just in it. You're just absorbed in the work. But being realistic, yes, concentration will still vary. Your mind might like jump to something else. It'll be a lot easier to pull it back because you are in a flow. And it is that flow that is weirdly very fulfilling. Because when you come out of the work, you're like, wow, I got so much done. Everything was flowing, and when you do that again and again, the enjoyment that you get from doing meaningful work in that state, there's honestly nothing like it. It really feels like such a good achievement. And then to finish the flow cycle of the fourth phase is the recovery phase, where you recover with focus. The second main action point I have for you is to understand how the flow cycle works, to really understand the phases and think about them when you're in them, when you're doing them. That makes it a lot more active. Watch some videos online, watch people like Ryan Doris do amazing videos on flow state. I've also made a full focus guide and how to improve your focus level, and I think I know it works, because it's filled with practical actions that I did myself in the month before putting the guide out, and it's improved my focus levels to insane levels. I'll link it up here. Check it out. You can follow along and do the actionable steps like most of my other guides have. Part 3, creating enjoyment after the session. A big point that I saw discussed in all of the books and articles that I was reading was purpose. And I've mentioned in my previous videos as well, it's apparently like the strongest driver for motivation for anyone. But the thing I was thinking about is, if it does, then why is everyone struggling with something like purpose until they're like 50? I even thought about myself. Is me being driven, me having this deep purpose and having a good idea of what I want in the future, my milestones and all of this sort of stuff, is that the reason I write scripts on the daily? Is that the reason I'm filming this video? Is it the reason that I'm working on and studying USMLE and med school topics every day? Is that why I enjoy all of the work tasks that I have? I don't know. Because number one, it's hard to find the whole why, like a complete vision of everything that you want to do and are aiming for before you even started. I didn't know why exactly I wanted to be a doctor before I did proper work experience in school. I didn't know why I even started this YouTube channel. It was just a thing of, I really enjoy writing, I'm a good speaker, and I think creating content and building an audience of a community, that'd be really beneficial. So let's do it. I had no idea that seeing the channel evolve, helping you guys on a personal level, coaching some of you, making money, getting better at this video after video, communicating my ideas with you, I didn't know all of these things would be the reason that all of it is so fun, so enjoyable. I had no idea that me juggling medical school with the channel would be the thing that was probably making me the happiest. Because honestly speaking, as difficult as it can be sometimes, it's just way more fun to live life when you're doing something like medical school on a part of the day, when you come home and you have this whole other thing you're working on that has limitless opportunities for you to grow and for you to do stuff, and there's complete autonomy in it as well. Having that variability is sick. Anyways, my point is, I had no idea why I would be enjoying doing the things that I'm doing right now, but I still went and did them. So the action point I'm going to give you in this section is, number one, don't overthink the exact purpose. More so just step into the process and make that as enjoyable as possible. The more you dive into the learning, the more you dive into that process-driven vibe, the more your big purpose will affirm. The other point I wanted to make is that yes, having that big purpose with a big capital P, having that being a driver is very important, and it is good with directing you, and you need to develop that over time, or at least think about it and think about your milestones and come up with them. But it's not really something that you think about every day. I don't think about my big purpose on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But me doing the small things that are already ingrained when I'm on my journey towards that big purpose, that is what makes everything so fulfilling and enjoyable on the daily. And Daniel Ping, the person who wrote Drive, where I've taken a lot of the knowledge from this guide for, he mentions that this is purpose with a small p. Purpose with a small p means that you do the small things to work towards your bigger ideas, your bigger goals. Has it taken you forward in your journey? Did you learn a topic super well today? Did you improve a skill to do with your learning process? Did you, like for me, it's going on placement and getting something very specific done, having a unique interaction with the patient, like building on my journey towards becoming a doctor, getting exactly what I want to get done in the day, making a great video for you guys, having a video perform well. It's the small actions, it's the small things. So even though this was a bit scattered, my point is that work towards building on those small P's as much as possible in your day-to-day, and you will see that that is something that will bring you even more enjoyment. Listen, this is the only way that you can be successful in your studies, stick to a difficult routine, create a business, do anything that you want to do. This is the only way. Finding enjoyment and meaning in the work is the only way that you can do it long term. It is a non-negotiable, because most tasks, most work that takes you to a top 1% entrepreneur, the best student out there, a very high performing human overall, are not the minimums that you have to get done, those tasks aren't associated with any deadlines. They're all independently driven, and that is why they're so hard. That is why so few do it. Getting into the flow of doing 10 10-hour, 12-hour days for so long is near impossible when you don't have exam pressures, etc. When you don't have any external motivation. It's impossible if you don't enjoy and find satisfaction and haven't learned to recreate that fulfillment within your work. So follow all of these action points. I'm going to put a summary slide up again. These are the steps that took me from someone who's dragging themselves through the work, through this everyday studying that had to be done, to someone that literally prefers doing these 10-hour, 12-hour work days over most of the other random distractions out there. Recreating the enjoyment in your work won't just happen if you just find your purpose or gamify the entire thing or find some like game to clock your progress or something. Yes, this sort of stuff ties up your process nicely and is very helpful when you're already in it, but you have to give yourself autonomy to start to study and create your own process. You need to give yourself the opportunity to master the skill of studying and become obsessed with learning and how to improve it. For long-term fulfillment, the work needs to be yours. It needs to be inspiring, stimulating, and energizing. Anyways, I really hope that this video has helped and it's resonated with some of you and it's just made sense, and I hope that a handful of you just walk away going like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna actively now try and enjoy the process by doing these actionable steps that he said. I just hope that that's the result. And if it is, please let me know. As usual, spam the comments, like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.